Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. It is 9:01 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards present, as well as Commissioner Carolina Mejia, County Manager Ramiro Chavez. Public can attend through our YouTube channel or by conference call at 360-252-9020. The PIN is 1234. Item number 1 is a standing update on COVID-19.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shelley Slaughter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. It is day 440 of Thurston County's COVID response. To date in Washington State, there have been 386,810 cases of COVID-19, with 5,394 Washingtonians that have lost their lives. This includes 8,379 cases in Thurston County, with 277 new cases occurring in the last week. 77 Thurston County residents have died, with one new death occurring this week and another one that we will be reporting this afternoon. And that puts us, for those that are interested to know where we are on the governor's risk assessment dashboard, that number of cases puts us at 132.6 case rate over the last 2 weeks for the governor's risk assessment dashboard. That is within the phase 3 metrics required. There have been 478 Thurston County residents that have been hospitalized since the pandemic began, with 13 new hospitalizations occurring in the last week. Our test positivity rate in Thurston County has gone up to 4.2%. We want to remind people that there is testing available, and if they are feeling symptoms or they have been exposed to someone that they know has COVID-19, to please get tested. Thurston County Public Health and Social Services offers mobile testing at our community-based testing site locations this morning from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We will be in Rochester at Rochester Organization of Families, tomorrow in the city of Lacey, on Thursday at Union Gospel Mission, and Friday at Evergreen State College. There are also many other healthcare providers that offer free testing, so strongly encourage people to do not delay to get tested. In terms of outbreaks, we've had 55 congregate care outbreaks to date, 5 that we are investigating currently. In terms of vaccines, good news on that front. To date, 172,501 doses of COVID-19 vaccine has been administered here in Thurston County. 36.19% of our Thurston County residents have received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, and 25.37% are fully vaccinated. So that is great. In the last week, Thurston County received an allocation of about 9,580 doses of COVID-19 vaccine. That includes first and second doses. We expect a similar allocation to our county this upcoming week. That does not include any direct federal allocations that may come to local pharmacies or our federally qualified health centers. We encourage people seeking vaccine to look on Vaccine Locator. Thurston County Public Health is offering a first dose clinic this Saturday at South Puget Sound Community College. Encourage people to look on Vaccine Locator as well as our Thurston County Public Health website if they are seeking vaccine. We are also offering several mobile clinics coming up here. We are partnering with Cielo to offer a clinic for Spanish-speaking people. That clinic, originally scheduled for this weekend, has been delayed and rescheduled for, I believe it is May 8th. We'll be sharing information about that due to a facility conflict. We're also very excited to be offering a drive-through vaccine clinic at New Life Baptist Church on May 1st. And we are also offering vaccines to local shelters in this next week. And with that, I will pause there and answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board for Shelley?
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
One of my first questions is in regards to the mobile clinics. How are these partners being chosen? Do they come up to you if they're interested? How are those partners being chosen?
It's a combination of both. I would say, Commissioner Mejia, we have reached out to partners in the community that we know are trusted community organizations. And then we've also had community organizations reach out to ask and how they could help and schedule clinics.
Thank you. My next question, what was the allotment? I'm sorry, I didn't hear those numbers for this week.
This last week was 9,580 first and second doses to Thurston County vaccine providers, and we're expecting a similar allotment this upcoming week.
With the J&J vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine not being given currently, has that affected our numbers?
We did have Johnson & Johnson vaccine. We still are holding that vaccine. The advisory committee is expected to meet again this Friday. And so we are hopeful that we will receive more information about whether we can resume using our Johnson & Johnson vaccine that we have on hand. We did plan a couple of clinics using Johnson & Johnson, and those are being rescheduled with other vaccine that we have available. So it did not have a significant impact on any of our vaccine activities that we planned for this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Edwards.
Shelley, did you say that we've got 172,000 that are vaccinated at least with one shot? Was that the number you said?
No, sir. 172,501 doses that have been administered in Thurston County.
And then the percentage that you're referring to, I guess what are you basing our population off of? I mean, if that isn't more than half, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. We've got under 300,000. Let's say we've got 300,000 people in our community. So how does that pencil out?
Yes, those percentages are based upon our total population. And as you know, we do not have a vaccine available for children yet under age 16. We do have Pfizer vaccine for children 16 to 18. But those percentages are based upon our total population, not just our current eligible adult population.
And then how do you count those 8,000 folks that have tested positive, whether they needed any assistance or not? Are they very much like a vaccinated individual? Do they get counted at all like that? No.
For people that have had COVID-19 or tested positive for COVID-19 at any time in the pandemic or recently, we do not know yet how long that immunity or how much immunity that they may have to COVID-19, and we encourage them to get vaccinated. So that is not included in any of our vaccine numbers.
Are you aware of any studies that are going on with those type of folks that have, during this past year, that have been diagnosed with it, that the antigens are still in their system? Are they checking people once a month, a certain group or something, so they get kind of a handle on how long that sticks with us?
I know there's a lot of research and studies being done. I don't know the specifics of those studies, but I'm happy to follow up and seek out some of that information. I don't believe any of those studies are occurring in Thurston County, but that doesn't mean that Thurston County residents aren't participating in those types of research studies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Shelley, my question's about the the 5 ongoing and 2 new facility outbreaks. And I'm just curious about that because I thought congregate care were in the top tiers of vaccination and should be, I would expect to be fully vaccinated by now. So what's the problem there?
Many congregate care facilities have had the opportunity to be vaccinated, but both employees and residents of those facilities frequently come in and out and may not yet have a vaccine. So there is still opportunities for COVID to spread in those type of facilities. We are also looking into at a state and national level into outbreak cases, in terms of vaccine breakthroughs. So COVID cases that are occurring in populations that have been vaccinated. So that I believe there have been over 100 in Washington state thus far identified. I think there's some more information coming out about that soon, but that's also research that's being looked at to better understand why that is happening. I will say that does not, I do not believe that accounts for the recent outbreaks that we've had at our local congregate care facilities. It's just more that vaccination is going to need to be an ongoing effort, and people need to continue to wear masks, physically distance, wash their hands, and protect themselves from any type of infectious disease or virus.
Are you able, there's different kinds of congregate care, and I know we can't, without talking about any specifics, are you able to say what the subtype is, like a nursing home versus a jail or a something else?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we do report that on our Thurston County Public Health website by facility type, whether that's long-term care facility, adult family home, correctional facility. So that information is available on our website. I don't have that right in front of me to give you that breakdown, but happy to get that, and members of the public can view that on our website.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Appreciate it.
Commissioner?
Yeah, County Manager.
Going back to the testing, Shelley, you stated that 132 per 100,000. That means within the criteria of the governors for us to remain in phase 3, and I believe the top threshold of that is 200, right?
Right.
And moving to the hospitalization, you stated we have 13 over the last week, and I believe the threshold is 5 per 100,000. Based on the governor's criteria, is that correct?
That is correct.
So just want to put a little parallel as to what those numbers mean, so thank you. Also related to the, following up to Commissioner Edwards' question on the 172 doses administered in Thurston County, is that correct? That it's not necessarily residents of Thurston County, there may be individuals coming from other counties, other regions, they have received a vaccination in Thurston County. And the percentage that you outline is really truly Thurston County residents based on the population. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Chair,
Chair, could I get another question when you get a minute, sir?
Yes, sir. Let me just, before we go away from Ramiro, I had a question on one of his questions, which is I didn't catch it. The second thing you asked, the metric about 5 and 13, what was that?
Yeah,
again?
the hospitalizations.
Oh, hospitalizations.
Yeah, it was on the governor's criteria is 5, and in the previous week 5 per 100,000. So we can assume that probably Thurston County is maximum 15 thereabouts per 100,000. We're at 13, which is getting closer though. But also on the new governor's criteria, I believe you have to fail all 2 before you may be considered to moving back a phase. So that is something that we need to watch as we move along.
Okay, thanks, Ramiro. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Going back to the county manager's question on the 13 and the 15 and that, those 13 that are hospitalized, though, they're from the region, aren't they? Rather than those just from Thurston County.
That is correct. That is the roadmap to recovery regional metric, not just Thurston County.
And that population might be 500,000 or something, I suppose, or more. I don't know the answer to that, but.
In the latest roadmap to recovery metrics, that has moved away from a regional move with our partners in Lewis, Grays, and Pacific, and is now looked at by individual county.
Right, but if we're counting regional entries into our regional hospital, you can't hardly claim they're all from Thurston County without knowing that.
That is correct, and I will make sure that we provide those specifics going forward in the report. The way we're still receiving that data is based upon the regional hospitalization rates. So, but I will confirm specifically how many Thurston County residents have been newly hospitalized. I will say, however, that with Providence St. Peter Hospital being our largest critical care access hospital in the region, and it is located in Thurston County, the capacity at Providence St. Peter Hospital does impact our metrics, even if people are occupying those beds from other areas.
And how many of those type of beds do we have? We've got two hospitals here, so how many beds?
I can get you that information. I do have it. I do have access to that. The way that I have the data for you today is based upon the percentages and not the total number of beds, but I'm happy to get that.
I guess my concern is that we furnish the state information with numbers that don't really correlate to Thurston County. That could have an adverse effect on our citizens and our businesses. And that's my concern, that we make sure we don't turn something in detrimental to the overall count and the metrics that the governor's got put in place. So that's my concern on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And just also, in terms of that process, Washington State's Department of Health automatically pulls and accesses county level data from data systems that our hospitals input information in. So it's not metrics that Thurston County Public Health collects and then reports to the state.
Well, I guess what I'd like to make sure is that of those 13, if only 8 of them are from Thurston County, they better be reporting only 8 rather than 13 to go against our per 100,000 population. That is my concern, to make sure that that is happening. I don't care who's reporting it, but I do expect your organization to stay on top of that particular issue, because I don't want to see us roll back like Pierce County did if it isn't totally necessary. I see still a bunch of fear factor going into this coming out of the governor's office, and I want to make darn sure we've got it right. Thank you.
Thank you. I assure you we are on top of it, and I will make sure that I look and get those details.
Thank you, Shelley. Let's move along. Next is home strategies update. I see Keely is online. Good morning, Keely.
Good morning. I'm Keely Marino with Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. I just have a very brief update for you today. As you probably are.
Somebody's phone is buzzing.
I'm sorry, it's mine.
Oh.
Some calls can be declined and some can't. I don't know why, and I couldn't.
It's all right.
Okay, so I'm sure we're aware that the City of Olympia hired a professional cleaning crew a couple weeks ago and spent 3 days doing a very thorough clean of Deschutes Parkway, which we're all aware of. But just to, I was present for some of that, and it was a remarkable feat, and was impressed by that whole process. So, and I met up with Teal Russell, the City of Olympia homeless coordinator, as she was key in assuring that process went smoothly. And she will be moving on. So the Olympia homeless coordinator, they're hiring at this point at the City of Olympia. There will be a new homeless coordinator in May at some point. I have been asked to sit on that interview panel. So I'm excited for Teal Russell and her new ventures, and also feel honored to be a participant in the interview panel for the person who will be replacing her. She has been incredibly valuable, really excellent partner, really good at her job. So sad that she's leaving, but glad for her. And then we'll have a more thorough report on the eviction prevention dollars that are going out, that is contracted through the Community Action Council. But they have, as I understand, made over 1,000 appointments already as of opening up that process about a week ago. So that's it. That's all I have for you today.
Commissioners, Mejia, anything for Keely?
No questions for Keely. Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, sir. Keely, are they keeping a dumpster on site down there where they did the cleanup?
Yes, Commissioner Edwards, they have had a dumpster or two on site ongoing, and they will continue to have those dumpsters. I am not aware if they're putting a dumpster anywhere else along that encampment, but I know that at least those two will remain.
And so what's your assessment of the ongoing situation down there? Are the residents keeping it spick and span? I
haven't been down there since 2 Fridays ago, so I don't know if I'd be able to accurately report on that.
Okay, I guess I'd just comment, if you don't know, it's not being kept spick and span. So by any chance, is there any talk about maybe hiring one of those individuals or two or something? I mean, I hate to think of the amount of money that the taxpayers paid out to have that cleaned up. And now it's kind of sliding back again. I would think that we could take some of that money and hire them at a minimum wage, or I don't know, $15 an hour, whatever's being talked about, and see if we can't get them to keep their own area cleaned up, and at the same time build a little self-esteem for those that are given that opportunity. And I hate just throwing money at it and then watching them throw more garbage on the ground. It drives me absolutely bananas, and I know it does other citizens. And somehow I would think we could do something like that, get something going, hire a few of those folks. They can't all be that bad. So.
Well, definitely I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Please just look into it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'd say that, over the last several weeks, I certainly have heard that message, and it is in our minds moving forward. And today, Tom Webster and I will be bringing the request for proposal on the scattered site proposal before you for the pilot project. And ostensibly, that is part of that process, is to ensure that when big cleanup efforts on Deschutes Parkway happen, that remains clean ongoing with that extra support. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Keely. I don't have any questions.
Can I just do like a comment?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Just follow up to Commissioner Edwards. He asked if that area was being maintained. I've been having to drop off my daughter at the Y Care that's now in downtown Olympia. So I've been driving past the area more frequently than what I usually do. And so far the area has been maintained. From what the initial cleanup was. I drive by there 3 times a week, and we went by there this weekend with my family, and the area was still very clean. So, so far it's being maintained.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move to item 3, which is a review of the draft agenda of this afternoon's board meeting. And that meeting will be called to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vice Chair Edwards. We will consider approval of agenda and board meeting minutes. And then at 2:05, there will be 3 presentations. We went over these last week. I don't know that much needs to be said, but we've got Timberland Regional Library, a proclamation regarding Billy Frank Jr. Remembrance Month, and a proclamation regarding Earth Day. County Manager, are there any issues can I address those together, and are there anything to be noted there.
No, sir. I believe we have representatives from the Nisqually tribe. They may be attending this afternoon for the Billy Frank Jr. Remembrance Month proclamation. And also, I believe we're going to have representatives from the community for the Earth Day proclamation as well. So we'll have the opportunity for you to hear some of their perspective as you read this proclamation. Related to Ms. Cheryl Haywood, that's a yearly update to the board. And yeah, looking forward to that.
Robin, I saw your hand.
Sorry, not on presentations. When we get to county manager items, I'll have something.
Okay, anything from the board members on items under presentation? Hearing nothing. Item 1 is opportunity for the public to address the board.
I don't have any specific items that you might be hearing, but certainly you'll probably receive some public testimony. I did have a conversation with the new municipal liaison from Puget Sound Energy, and I suggested for him to come and use the 3 minutes this afternoon to introduce himself in front of the board. Hopefully he will come and do that. So that might be a part of that item on your agenda.
Item 2 is county manager update, and Ramiro, and then it sounds like Robin has something as well.
Yeah, the first item, I will probably give the floor to Robin, and she has some news to share related to the rating, credit rating that Thurston County has. So, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, that is the item I wanted to bring up, just to share the good news related to the assessment of Thurston County's credit rating.
Yes, great. We got an email kind of explaining that, so I appreciate that. Questions from the board for Robin or Ramiro on county manager update?
I have a second item that I will highlight after
Okay.
that, Commissioner. And this related to the public testimony you received from Mr. Terry Ballard, and not just last week and the last few months, I believe, related to the federal, the Veterans Fund. Later on your agenda, I will present to you the final internal audit report, and I will highlight this afternoon at a high level what that report entails, and then at that point I will make that available to the public upon request. But again, first I will introduce in more detail that report to you later today.
And then at this point in the agenda this afternoon, you'll address it?
Yes, I will address in terms of the public testimony, and I will take a few minutes just to highlight the results and the findings of that internal audit report.
Questions, Commissioner Mejia for the county managers?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay, then let's move to item 3, consent agenda. Item 3A is the resolution establishing senior management analyst position.
Yes, I have this item, and later on your agenda to have a broader conversation with the county auditor as you requested. And on your agenda is the federal funds, financial resources, to have a conversation. I believe the county auditor is present right now. So you have 2 options, whether you want to engage on that conversation right now or wait until later on, and this item will be pending, depending on that conversation that you may have later today.
Mary Hall, county auditor, is on the Zoom, and I would check with her to see what her schedule allows, if she is able to engage in this later or needs to address it now. Mary, can you unmute?
Maybe she's waiting, because I did share the agenda with her.
Okay, so it's on there at a later point already?
I do have a couple questions on that particular topic.
I'm sure we all have a ton of questions.
Okay, so we'll hold it. Okay. It won't be a consent item though, will it?
I don't know. I don't think the board's decided where we are. I certainly haven't decided where I stand on this issue. So we may all land in the same place. We may not. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, not hearing from Mary, let's move on. And as Ramiro has proposed. And the item 3B is auditor financial services voucher list. Any questions from the board on that?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then item 4 is 4A, resolution for biennial budget type.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration is to follow up on the board's decision to have a biennial budget with an annual adjustment for 2022, 2023. The result of your decision, you need to have a formal action, and this is the way to have a legislative decision to pass this resolution. I know that last week it was a conversation related to when staff presented this option to have additional information as to how the board would like to conduct the midterm adjustment. And that conversation needs to occur later, not necessarily in this part of the resolution. So we'll engage the board later on as part of the budget process as to how you like to conduct the midterm adjustment when we get to that point. Robin, would you like to add anything on that?
Nothing to add.
Any questions on this item?
No, sir.
No,
Sherwood?
No.
Okay, let's go to 4B, general fund balance and budget stabilization fund.
Yes, sir. Following up again with the board's direction to establish a budget stabilization fund. So this is and again, for you to consider taking a formal action to establish this fund. And I can probably give you into the details. And also you receive some public feedback related to this particular matter. And I will give the floor to Robin to walk you through the details and maybe address some of the items the citizens highlighted in that email.
So the resolution establishes a minimum balance in the general fund for cash flow. It establishes a target balance in the general fund for reserve, and it establishes a budget stabilization fund separate from the general fund for basically a rainy day fund. There appeared to be concern on behalf of a citizen that we would put money into the budget stabilization fund in order to present a lower general fund balance when we calculate property tax and if we're at the maximum amount in the general fund. But it would not work that way because this is considered general fund, and according to generally accepted accounting standards, GASB, and the way that we prepare the annual report, we combine general fund and general fund-like funds. So the budget stabilization fund and the general fund balances would be combined for the annual report, and when we calculate if we're at the state limit or maximum that the fund may bear that would affect our ability to raise property tax. So that is not a concern. The other item that was raised was that the $2 million that the board would like to deposit as the initial beginning of the budget stabilization fund is not in your budget. And while it is true that it was not in your original budget, as you will see when we review the budget amendment on Thursday, it is an item on that list, and I assumed in the latest forecast that we reviewed that you would make that $2 million deposit. So that will be part of your budget amendment. And we plan to hold the public hearing on the budget amendment on May 25th. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, Commissioner Mejia?
No, I have no questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes. Is there any reason we couldn't put this money in the road fund? We're talking about, we didn't do it at a certain time, so now we can't do it. But we had a meeting the other day, and it basically shows that the road fund is severely lacking. And if we've got extra money, I would like to work on our roads, I think, until we see what is going to come of the whole COVID thing, the bubble, if you will, on sales tax. See if we can't end up developing more revenue through other sources, but basically economic development. So what I'm wondering about is would that be legal to move that money into the road fund to go towards upgrading our roads instead of this fund? That's just a question.
Yes, Commissioner, the board could decide to transfer money out of the general fund and into the road fund. You could also decide this year to not do the road diversion out of the road fund, or to put the diversion money back into the road fund. What we could not do at this point in time is change the levy shift that is set with the levy every year. But you could certainly decide as a board to say, we would like to transfer X amount from the general fund to the road fund. You could do that instead of this action. You could do that in addition to this action. You can do any of these transactions in any amount you see fit, because the board controls the money of the county.
Okay, so we would be legal, I guess, because we've been scrutinized, like you say, by a citizen about the process on how we're doing this. But even if we did it the way you've laid out, we'd be okay. If we did it towards adjusting the need of the road fund and trying to upgrade our roads as laid out by the road department the other day, the need that they see, both of those expenditures, we could legally do those and be okay, even though it's not in the comp plan or whatever is being referred to.
Yeah. So the comp plan, the thing with the comp plan, it's the capital improvement projects or the capital facilities program, CIP, CFP, both of those are applicable. That comes into play when we're talking about capital projects. And what we're not talking in this instance about capital projects specifically. What we're talking about is a transfer between funds. As long as you have authorized that in your budget. And by the way, if you wanted to do a transfer to the road fund, we would ensure that that's a line item in your budget amendment. But, you know, as long as it's in the budget, then yes, you can transfer money out of the general fund. What you cannot do is transfer money at will, if you will, between restricted funds into the general fund. So once you make that transfer into the road fund, you can't decide to take it out again other than through the levy shift or the diversion process.
Okay, I guess kind of what I'm trying to square this, that we would be able to move this without it being in the comp plan, I guess, or the capital plan. But how can we move, we are going to move money into our move down to Pacific Avenue somehow. We're moving money there without it being in the comp plan or capital plan, right?
So you're not moving money. And
Or spending money to do that, I guess.
That's right. And that
Okay.
is out of the REIT fund. And that is an amendment to the CIP that we will be bringing forward along with the budget amendment that authorizes the spending for that particular project.
So we can make a CIP adjustment midterm? That isn't just a once a year thing?
The law allows you to change the CIP along with any budget amendment. So as long as we do those in tandem, yes, you may make the change mid-year.
Okay. I guess my concern, and we're going to discuss this farther, I guess, is the road fund and the condition of our roads as explained by Public Works, I guess a week ago or something. Okay, thank you. I'm ready to move forward.
Okay. Just as a comment on that, I think the simplest way to accomplish your goal, Commissioner, is just to stop doing the shift next year's budget, and that's going to get you right where you sounds like you want to be. So we can debate that for next year or next fall. So that's item 4B. And then 4C is bond resolution for refunds and major information technology systems.
Yes, Commissioners, you had a conversation on this item, and this is for you to delegate the authority to the Assistant County Manager to take advantage of the bond market. They will have two components. One is to see the opportunity to refund existing bonds on about $12.3 million, and also to issue bonds for just about $6.7 million to purchase information technology systems. One is the permitting system they will need to replace, as well as the county financial, including HR systems. You had a good conversation last week, I believe, with Robin, and she's here to answer any additional questions related to this item.
Questions from the board on item 4C?
Yes, sir. Robin, what would be the savings for the county if we were to refinance or do a refunding? That's the correct term when it comes to bonds. If we were to refund the other bonds.
So the refund is currently estimated to save us $878,000, almost $1 million in savings.
Thank you. And is this bond, I know that there's bonds where we cannot pay off early. Is this one where we are allowed to pay off early?
Yes, it is. We're taking a somewhat different approach to the sale of these bonds. We're doing a bank issue rather than a bond sale. And one of the terms of the bank that we have agreed is the appropriate one is that we can, after the first year, we can pay them off at any time.
Wow. Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, sir. What is the difference in interest that we're going to be paying, or is that privileged information? I don't know how that fits. And I'm looking at the time frame too. So we're not going to pay anything off earlier or later. We're just going to get a better interest rate. Is that correct?
Correct. We are getting a much better interest rate. The savings is approximately 7.5%. And I don't have the difference between the current interest and the proposed interest, but I believe the proposed interest rates are all well under 2%.
I guess I didn't get that 7% you were talking about. What was that in reference to?
So part of what our bond resolution or our bond advisors do when we get these packages is determine what percent of net value savings we will have in our finance policy, our debt policy, says that anything under.
Mary, can you mute yourself, please? Mary?
Oh, hang on.
Mary, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
So as I was saying, our debt policy requires the net present value savings be at least 3%. And this transaction will net us 7.5% in savings.
Is that after we've paid off whatever fees we have to pay? We'll
Yes,
still come out with that kind of a savings?
yes,
And the time frame is not going to be extended that we're going to owe, right?
correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, before we move off of items 4, I had a note from 4B that I wrote down and then forgot to ask. Robin, on 4B, and I'm going back to the general fund balance and budget stabilization resolution, the board received a letter from finance. That's not the finance committee, but it's a subcommittee in our county, and I forget the name of it. But I just wanted to have you highlight that this was a recommendation of our financial advisors from the auditor in your office.
Yes, the county has a financial management committee that provides financial policy advice to the Board of County Commissioners. That committee sent you a letter in recommendation of adopting the budget stabilization and establishing these minimum fund balances.
And that's what 4B is aimed at trying to accomplish.
Yes, that's right. And by the way, the financial management committee consists of Auditor Mary Hall, Treasurer Jeff Gadman, and County Manager Romero Chavez.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to highlight. All right. So let's move on to item 5 on today's agenda.
Yes, Commissioner, you also, Commissioners, you also reviewed this item, and this is somewhat related to the previous item, and specifically related to the update of the Amanda system. That's the permitting system that we have in place. This particular item is for you to consider issuing a contract, to consider waiving the competitive process and getting into a professional services contract with Soft Source Resources Consulting for $108,562. I believe last week it was a great conversation as to what the value added this particular contract will do. It really will give us the opportunity to have a very robust conversation with all the different stakeholders to develop a good system architecture and a system requirements before we go out to the market and secure a new software. It has been proven fruitful on the ERP system, and also I believe on the core management system we implemented the same. Did we secure a consultant on the core management system, Dennis?
What's court management?
On the case management system, sorry.
Oh, that company does all the implementation and everything themselves.
So it did the same services? Okay.
Yes.
It also, I think we have, last week, we also saw some of the experiences that we had when we don't take the time to have a good, robust analysis of the system needs and system analysis. And I believe this is a well worth investment for the board to consider, considering the Amanda system is going to be pivotal. It is pivotal and critical as to how we're going to be providing services to our citizens in a more web-based environment.
Okay. Dennis, anything to add there?
No, I think Romero touched on all the main points I'd be touching on as well, but I can answer you.
Board have questions for Dennis or Romero?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks.
That covers item 5. We'll go to item 6, Public Health and Social Services. 6A is request for proposals for the LEAD program. Mary Ann O'Gara.
Commissioners, for your consideration is for you to authorize issuing the request for proposals to secure proposals for case management and program management to implement the Thurston County LEAD. That will be the Law Enforcement Assistant Diversion Program. Is a pilot program that would receive a grant. And again, it was a good conversation you had last week. And without getting too much into the details, Mary Ann O'Gara is here to answer any additional questions you may have related to this item.
Questions, Commissioner Mejia for Mary Ann.
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards.
Yes, I'm wondering about the dollar amount that our local budget will cover. What dollar amount is that we're putting in as far as a match?
The dollar amount that's dedicated out of the treatment sales tax fund is up to $300,000. We expect it would be about $250,000 though. We don't think we would need that full amount.
And then a follow-up to that would be, are we getting credit for part of that match through some type of participation?
I'm not positive what you're thinking of in terms of some participation, but we also are asking anyone who's applying for the RFP to identify ways that they can provide match to support their participation in the project.
Okay, I guess kind of where I'm going with this, I was able to talk with the sheriff a little bit about this, and he didn't think he was going to have the FTEs available to really adequately participate in this. And if that's the case, are we going to end up against a situation where we're going to have to pay back some kind of match if it doesn't pan out the way we had hoped originally?
So in the, this may help from a contemplation of what startup looks like versus over the plan where we'd have some different issues to address in the long term. In the startup process, an example of how the Thurston County Sheriff's Office would be participating, they would be not in the field looking at how to do an arrest diversion. They would be working with us through, for example, a planned meeting where we would look at who they are having frequent contact with that meet that criteria for eligibility, identifying those individuals and completing a form that would go to the case management services, and then the case management services staff would contact those individuals to see if they would be interested in participating in the program. It's voluntary. And then the sheriff's office actually would not have to do any further work at this point in time, because then the prosecutor's office also would be taking over to make sure before they were offered the service that they were truly appropriate for the service. And the case management services, if the individual said that they were interested, they did want the program, the case management services provider would be taking over. So any further interaction that the sheriff's office would have with any lead participant, we would hope would be less frequent or not happening because they would be involved in the lead program. So actually, the goal of the program is that the sheriff's office, by doing the referral, looking at who they're having frequent contact with, offering the service to that program, they actually will save time and not be involved with the individual. That's kind of the startup process.
Okay. How about the other law enforcement entities within Thurston County, whether State Patrol or the municipalities, game department? I don't know who all you're including in that, but are they all going to be able to participate in this as well? And have they bought on to it, I guess, yet? And if they haven't, are we hoping they do soon? Or how's that fit? Because where I'm going with this eventually is, since we started talking about this about a year ago, we've had some changes in state legislation. Basically, we had that Supreme Court decision on the Blake decision, which is going to potentially eliminate a lot of potential clients that we would have normally tried to get into this program. And the new legislation that's been proposed, I don't know if that's going to help us to continue to get people in, or is that going to basically let everybody off the hook so nobody's going to want to participate? So that's kind of where I'm going with all that. And it's relatively new and not settled policy yet, it doesn't look like. So go ahead. I'm just looking for some answers quick.
Sure. Well, that's what I appreciate about you. You're asking questions a lot of other people have. And here's a couple things I could say. What I really appreciate about our anchor partners, our steering committee, and everyone else, they get the answers and look for the information that you're also looking for, and help me think about things and inform us at the Public Health and Social Services Department about things like the Blake decision. The prosecutor's office gets us what that means. So does public defense. What does this mean? How does this impact the program? And when new things come along with the legislature, what does that mean? How will that impact us? And that's what we appreciate about a partnership project. Law enforcement, what does that mean? What does this look like for us? So I can't speak to what's coming. I can tell you what I know about what the Blake decision has done. And we had to take a look at what that meant, because you're absolutely right. It impacted some referrals we absolutely anticipated having. And we knew that that was a component of the program. We had to take a look again at what that meant for the LEAD program. And in having conversations, it still meant we have in Thurston County enough folks who are still having way too much contact with law enforcement for low-level offenses that we have plenty of referrals for the LEAD program without the Blake, without the things that the Blake decision impacted. Things that may come through the legislature, that's a conversation where I'm so lucky with the prosecutor's office and John Tunheim and his staff. They inform us. Public defense, Patrick O'Connor, they inform us what things mean. We'll keep our eye on that. But I can say we do have enough with this particular RFP capacity to start up a pilot program that can serve at least about at minimum, 3 other, in addition to the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, at least 3 other law enforcement agencies. And we do know that others are interested. I will tell you that the Thurston County Prosecuting Attorney's Office has had discussions with State Patrol over how this might fit and work to support some of their interests, and how they come into contact with folks in Thurston County on state property frequently. So we are looking at kind of all the unique partnerships. Even DNR comes across folks in different places in Thurston County. So we're kind of keeping our eyes open, but thinking about what it means for the Thurston County Sheriff's Office and our local law enforcement agencies. So we do have interest. We do absolutely believe come June, we are going to have enough referrals to provide to a case management service provider should you approve a contract selected out of this RFP. And
that's basically all. I just want to make sure that we weren't going to be put in a situation where we had to pay back some kind of a grant. That's all.
No, and
sounds like you got it covered.
We are working very hard to try to think through all of these things, and Ramiro comes to our meetings and is helping us as well with this. So we are we really are trying to work this through, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menser, I would like to hear, I mean, your perspective, because you've been a very active part of this as well.
Perspective on
just, Commissioner Edwards' questions and concerns or comments.
Yeah, sure. I definitely want to make sure that our sheriff's office feels that they have the capacity to participate, because I agree with Mary Ann's characterization that even if it's a little bit of a lift in the front end, we hope that it's really going to be a benefit in the back end. Once this program is rolling, it should help law enforcement and be a really effective tool for them. So that's something I definitely want to work on. I know the prosecutor put together a meeting. He described a meeting he put together with all the heads of the law enforcement agencies and felt that he got really good input and enthusiasm from the different agencies. I think all of them, Lacey, Tumwater, and Olympia, were all interested in being participants. So that's good. I mean, there's obviously questions and issues, but there's definitely buy-in to trying to move forward. The thing that Commissioner Edwards pointed out about the Blake decision is obviously a work in progress. The last thing I heard was during the Law and Justice Council meeting Thursday evening, we had Juliana Rowe from WASAC, who's our public safety policy person, and she was basically looking, while she was reporting to us, she was looking at another screen at what was going on the floor of the Senate or House, whatever, in the legislature, and there were like several different versions, but the version where there would be penalties for drug possession, but they would be misdemeanor level penalties, that one had gotten some traction. And as of Thursday at like 5:30, that was the latest I heard, is that version of the Blake fix was moving forward, which would create, I think that's a really good compromise in a sense, because it addresses certain aspects of our drug laws that don't work, but it still keeps, it wouldn't affect something like drug, it wouldn't have to totally upend drug court and lead programs and things like that, because there'd still be that sort of hook to try to get people's lives back on track. So that may end, who knows where that's gonna land, but we'll deal with that where Mary Ann's sort of looking at worst case scenario. If the drug law is completely upended and not fixed, would there still be enough referrals, based on mental health issues, based on other types of criminal issues? And she's saying that there would be. So I'm not really concerned vis-a-vis lead, because it's broader than just substance abuse. Those are my reactions, I guess.
I guess I'd just like to throw in there that the sheriff did not say he wasn't supportive of it. He was questioning whether or not how much he was going to be able to participate. I just want to make sure we had enough participants and we had enough pool of potential customers left after the Blake decision. So
yeah, good questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
6B, also under public health, is request for proposals for scattered site pilot project. Different topic here. And we have Tom Webster.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This is a follow-up to the conversation the board had related to the scattered site pilot project. To give you for the public's perspective, this is really related to address the issues of the RV parking along Ensign Road near to the St. Peter's Hospital. We, at the beginning, when the board approved contributing to this effort last year, one of the properties that we're looking to consolidate alternative parking for RVs was a property located on the Carpenter and Martin Way, which is owned by the City of Olympia. Through that process, we discovered there's going to be either more expensive and more complicated to implement that consolidated parking. So staff went through the process to see how we can look for ways to address the current and need that we have on Ensign Road. Staff proposed to you the scattered site, and that was also a program that we discussed at the Regional Housing Council. The Regional Housing Council provided a support for you to consider moving forward on this pilot project that was probably going to take us for the next year. So this particular item is following up the directions of the board to continue on this pilot project And this is for you to consider issuing a request for proposals to get a contractor to help us manage these scatter sites. Tom?
I don't have much to add. There's, as County Manager Romero said, total of 3 sites in this pilot project. One is Ensign Road and the other 2 are encampments. And so we're looking for a case management and site governance contractor to help manage those 3 sites. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I do have a question, sir.
Go ahead.
When you say one of those sites is Ensign Road, does that mean we're not going to solve that problem on Ensign Road that currently the hospital is very concerned about, as are other citizens? So is that going to continue? Is that going to be allowed to continue as is?
So we are continuing to look for a permanent site where RVs can park legally and safely until that site is identified and secured. This is an effort to reduce the impact that those RVs are having on traffic, keep the sidewalks clear and help provide services. So this is really an interim solution in a lot of ways until a permanent site can be found. So we are continuing to look for a permanent site for safe parking. But until we have that site, this is a way to help manage the folks on Ensign Road to reduce the impact they're having on the community and to connect them to services and try to get them into permanent housing.
I guess my concern is that at all these sites, it just makes me sick to go north on the freeway there by Wheeler and see that mess. And I know it's such a sad state of affairs that people drive through our capital city and, oh, welcome to Olympia, So I've been bugging you folks for a long time about making sure things are cleaned up. And I truly think that if we could use some of this money to hire some of those people to clean up their own mess, they would take some pride in their own little area, if you will, build some self-esteem. Maybe they could get some gas money. I don't know all what it could benefit, but I would certainly like to see some kind of a requirement in that RFP that requires the sites to be beautified somehow. I don't know if that's the right term or not. I would tolerate just being cleaned up so it doesn't look so bad. They don't have to plant plants, but can you figure out a way to make that happen? And to be honest with you, I wasn't quite sure. I didn't think that we were staying at Ensign. I thought something was in the works other than that to solve that problem for those folks, mainly at the hospital and people in and out and the ambulance crews and stuff. So it sounds like we do not yet have a solution on that.
So a couple initial thoughts on that, and Keely is also with us and she can weigh in. So this component RFP is we're looking for the case management and site governance services. So a contractor to find those case management services to try to connect people to services. There's a second part of this pilot project, which is to provide funding with the City of Olympia to do the cleanup similar to what was done on Wheeler Road, and then ongoing maintenance of kind of the site management. So ongoing garbage collection, hygiene services, septic, clean outs, RV pump outs, those types of things. So there is a component of this pilot project that will support kind of the cleaning up these sites and maintaining the sites at a cleaner level than they have been, hopefully. And so there is that component as well. We can certainly, within the RFP, as we're looking at proposals, talk to the contractor that is selected to look and see if there is opportunities to hire residents of these communities to keep their spaces clean. So that's something we can certainly work with contractors to explore.
Okay.
Keila, do you have anything to add to that? Or sorry, go ahead.
I think you did a good job.
One question then, Tom. Are we as a body going to be voting at 2 o'clock this afternoon on this particular issue for the total dollar amount? Or are we going to have an option farther down the road once we see that things are coming together and look like it's working to have another vote? Like in other words, I don't know what the total package is that we're voting on, but I'm hesitant to vote on the total package in one fell swoop. And a month down the road, we see it's just not working. So how is this broken up?
Yeah, so right for today, what we're asking you is your approval to issue the RFP, to issue that request for proposals. Once we receive proposals, we'll evaluate them, and then we'll come back to you with a request to sign a contract with an actual dollar amount for these services. So at that point, you'll be able to see the dollar amount that these services are requesting. Within the pilot project, there is built in a 6-month evaluation period. So after 6 months, we can evaluate how the program is working and make adjustments as needed. So this is kind of another step in the process to issue this RFP, but you'll have another opportunity before a contract is actually signed to review that and then make a decision on whether you want to approve that contract for the dollar amount based on what we receive out of this RFP.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, I'm really surprised to hear you say you didn't realize Ensign wasn't being cleared. I kind of raised a lot of concern about that a month ago, and we discussed that, and we landed a big article in the Olympian all about it. And then I took a tour of the sites and reported back on it. And then we got input from Providence last week or two saying that they supported this plan. So there's been a lot of back and forth about this approach and what its shortcomings are and what its value is. I think they are. I think the intent is to keep clean the sites that are. I wasn't particularly excited that we weren't being able to go further with the safe parking concept that kind of started this whole discussion. But I have confidence we're going to get there because there's still ongoing work from our staff, as we've heard this morning, and RHC is working on it as well. So hopefully we will get there. But yeah, we've had a lot of discussions about this and even media coverage. So that's the RFP. And Commissioner Mejia, did you have anything?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions in regards to this program. So I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Keely. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next, item 7 is Public Works. Execute master interlocal agreement with Lot Clean Water Alliance for roadway and utility activities.
Yeah, Commissioners, you reviewed this item as well last week, and for your consideration is to execute a 5-year interagency cooperation agreement between Thurston County, particularly Public Works, and the Lot Clean Water Alliance. And this particular contract allows us to really cooperate in services as well as in expertise. And Tim is here to answer any additional questions related to this item. That would be Tim Wilson.
Tim Wilson, anything to add here?
I don't think so at this time, unless there's questions.
Questions from Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay. Nope, I'm good. Straightforward item. And let's go to 7B, also in Public Works. We have professional services contract for Lake Lawrence submerged aquatic vegetation control.
Yeah, if with your indulgence, Commissioner, items 3, I'm sorry, it's not 3. Items 7B, C, and D are related to considering issuing the contracts to provide treatment on the lakes Lawrence as well as Long Lake. Last week, Commissioner Menser asked a few questions related to the number of chemicals and the increase the chemicals has been since past. So attached to your packet is an email from Tim Wilson that you received, giving you an explanation to that question. Also included on your packet is an email that you received from Mr. Barry Halverson. That was last Thursday. they also attempts to answer that question on page number 1. So I know you have questions on the overall and the 3 items. And so at this point, maybe I can give the floor to Tim Wilson to walk you through his perspective on trying to address the questions that Commissioner Messer had.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Tim Wilson, Water Resources Manager with Public Works. Yes, I heard 2 questions last week at agenda setting. One had to do with an increase in herbicide usage in the lakes beginning in 2017. So I tried to give a little bit of history from my perspective and what I recalled of the process for those increases. You have that in front of you. And then I think there was also a question about procurement and the rules around procurement and why the steering committees weren't more engaged in that process. And I'd be happy to answer that question as well.
Can you go through your email a little more in detail, Tim? I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Yes. So the question was from Commissioner Menser. He had observed an increase in herbicide usage in the lakes beginning in 2017. So basically, what occurred in 2017. Several items. There was a shift in the board's philosophy, I guess, at that time in terms of how we should be approaching herbicide usage in the lakes. Prior to that, the prescriptions for herbicide usage in the lakes was a little more restrictive. We only utilized herbicides that had a past rating by the Thurston County Environmental Health's internal review of those herbicides. What we were seeing at that point was some herbicide resistancy from some of the plants in the lakes, and board direction, if you will, to explore herbicides that would address that issue and that they did not necessarily have to meet the past rating. So a few things happened. There was a change in the pesticide advisory committee in terms of having some lake management representation on that advisory board. There were 2 prescriptions that were written at that time that added in 2017 the herbicide endothol, and the trade name for that is aquathol, to the toolbox, if you will, for Long Lake first in 2017, and then for Lake Lawrence in 2018. Endothol is a product that has to be used in higher concentrations in order to achieve results. The herbicide that we primarily used prior to aquathol being accepted was applied at parts per billion, and aquathol is applied at parts per million. So much greater concentration needed in order to achieve efficacy on the plants that we were using.
Can I stop you there then?
Yes.
Okay, so what is a hazards pass rating? Who decides that, and how did these new chemicals get added? What was determined to decide that they needed to be added to the pass rating and appropriate for use?
The hazard rating is managed by Thurston County Environmental Health. They do an independent review of the herbicides before they are added to the list, and they receive a classification based on several criteria. aquatic toxicity, persistence in the environment, toxicity to humans, mammals, etc. So they either receive a rating of passed if they are of low hazard, or conditional if they hit the marks in several categories of concern, or a failed category. Sonar, which we were using primarily prior to 2017, had a passed rating. Endothol or aquathol has a conditional rating. And the process, if you will, for getting those approved, these prescriptions have to be adopted by the Board of Health, and that has to be done after evaluation by the Pesticide Advisory Committee under the county's integrated pest management program. It does not necessarily mean that the Pesticide Advisory Committee has to be in support or recommend it, but it means that they have to review it before the Board of Health would take action to adopt.
So what's the meaning of a conditional rating?
A conditional rating typically indicates that there are moderate risk hazards in one or more categories. So, and environmental health could probably speak to this better, Commissioner Menser, to be honest with you, but for aquathol, there are two categories that of concern where the potential hazard is high, and those are human toxicity and toxicity to other mammals. It should be noted that the concerns for that are typically in the concentrated form. So it's more of a concern with the application of those materials than it is once it is in the water. So I think that's important to note. But still, they do receive those potential high hazard ratings.
So if a board was going to allow a conditionally approved chemical to be used, I assume by the use of the word conditional, there are conditions and there are side rails that would limit the way it's used or the amount in which it's used, or what are those side rails for conditionally approved chemicals that have moderate levels of toxicity?
Typically, the higher or the lower the rating of the herbicide, it becomes the least preferred alternative. So if you look at the prescriptions for herbicides for lake management, depending on what species is out there and what species we're trying to control, the herbicide that has the lowest rating would be the least preferred alternative. So if there's an herbicide, if there's a tool that could be efficacious against that plant species, then we would use that prior to using the herbicide that has the conditional rating.
And in this case, putting your email together with Mr. Halverson's email, it seemed like the previous approaches were good on some plants, not good on others. And I guess the concern I had is what he described was kind of a process, and I mean, I understand it, you're kind of chasing the tail, but it just seemed like it was when you read the email, it kind of seems like it was, okay, let's pour a bunch of chemicals to deal with that. Okay, these aren't being addressed. Let's pour a bunch of chemicals to deal with that. Oh, these are back again. And it just seemed like, and it was just like back and forth. And I'm wondering are we evaluating the cumulative effect of doing all that? I mean, maybe using one thing is okay in some amount of limited amount, but then you start piling it one on top of the other, and it changes the dynamic of what's, I don't know. It's a pretty, and again, I get Mr. Halverson did a great job of explaining the fact that one product is just because of its formulation, you use a lot more of it. It's not necessarily meaning that it's more, and the graph I looked at, I guess, was just in raw pounds, not actually the active ingredient. I don't know if that's true, but that's the implication of what he said. But even if that's true, when you see an 18-fold, and then you see that you're chasing the tail of a whole bunch of plants, it just seems like a never-ending witch's brew of chemicals in our lakes that raised concern to me. And again, I learned about this literally Wednesday on an unrelated topic. I was really responding to a citizen about a different chemical on a different prescription, and that's where I stumbled upon this. And it just happened to be that these contracts were up for debate on our Thursday morning agenda setting. So I haven't had a lot of time to digest all of this. So I'm kind of just nervous to be approving these contracts, learning what I've learned about what I didn't know. I mean, everything Mr. Halverson said in his email was really good information, but it's something I feel like I should have known before being asked to approve these votes, and I didn't know any of it. And I didn't know about this philosophic change of the board in 2017, and so I'm just still a little nervous. I'm going to turn it to my seatmates, though. I grabbed this issue because this was my question, and they had a question on the RFP process. But as we can stick for a minute with this issue about the different uses of the pesticides, I'll go to Commissioner Mejia.
No, I appreciate this conversation because this is all new to me and this is not something I'm well versed in. So I always appreciate the feedback and the background and Commissioner Menser's insight on this. Commissioner Menser, if you don't ask me, you said you were working on this with another constituent issue. Was this relating to one of the two lakes or another lake?
It was really related to all of the lakes, probably Black Lake most specifically, but it was the very well-known Roundup chemical, glyphosate, or whatever it's called. I was looking into the history of how much do we use that, why do we use it, are there alternatives to using it, to see kind of how to respond to that citizen's concern about glyphosate. And I was questioning environmental health about that, and they provided me some links to information on our website that showed this increase in chemicals on lakes, and then I saw on the agenda that we have these Long Lake and Lawrence Lake, so it just all kind of came together in one jumble.
Thank you. I have no
Commissioner
further.
Edwards, anything on this?
Yes, sir. I guess because I was here during that time frame, I'll just comment on a couple things. This change in prescription came about from recommendations from the lake management people wanting to utilize products that are utilized all through the state of Washington and other counties and authorized by the state of Washington. And they felt that that usage could solve particular problems, probably similar to what Mr. Halverson has laid out. But I would say that I do think through, I can't really comment too much on Long Lake, but from Mr. Halverson's position on educating me on it, I guess as time went by, yes, the prescription amount or the usage amount, I don't know if you go by pound or whatever you're going by, went up, I think in 17 and 18, and in 19 and 20 and now in 21, I believe they reduced the amount mainly through spot type application and not being too broad about the application. And maybe Paula would know something about that I mean, that's what I'm hearing from the lake management people, and possibly the same thing went on over at Long Lake. I'm not up on that exactly. But I think that the key was that I don't think there's a chemical out there that you want to drink or have constant exposure to. But in this case, we wanted to follow guidelines laid out by the state and used by every other county in Washington State. And so that was the gist of that change, if you will, in prescription. That was a request brought forward by the Lakes folks. So that's how we got there. I do think they're being pretty responsible about the usage, and not only from an environmental standpoint, but from a cost standpoint, are trying to do the best job they can with the least amount of application. So.
I see we've got Paula. She usually has good scientific information to throw in, so I'll ask her to maybe respond to some of the questions you've heard so far, and then a couple follow-ups on that.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, Commissioners. Paula Cracknell, Aquatic Resource Specialist at Thurston County Public Works. What I would first like to address, Commissioner Menser, is your comment about chasing the tail and lakes management. You're actively managing and using adaptive management practices in order to have the best outcome. The fact of the matter is Long Lake and Lake Lawrence are both eutrophic lakes. They're both shallow and they have many issues with water quality, including excess vegetation. Managing the excess vegetation actually increases water quality in a lot of areas. It increases dissolved oxygen. It makes the pH levels safe. It makes temperature safe for fish and wildlife. So if we leave these plants and just let them grow, what will happen is the lake will become stagnant. It will become warm, and we'll start seeing fish dying all over the place. In addition to people swimming, getting caught up into the weeds, which there have been cases at Spanaway Lake and Spanaway where people have actually drowned from being caught up in the weeds. So as far as managing them with what we have available, we have a limited arsenal of chemicals that we can use. Thurston County is incredibly restrictive in what we put into our water bodies, and we also are responsible in the way that we administer these chemicals. We apply them to plants that are actively growing, and we use the best available at the time. There's also an issue with some chemicals being available at some point. Last year, we had or in 2019, we had ClearCast available. In 2020, we didn't. So we had to switch to using Aquathol instead of ClearCast to manage curly-leaf pondweed. I think that it would be beneficial for both of the commissioners to, who are new on the board, to have a briefing on lakes management and lake ecology, because it's a complex issue that isn't as black and white as we're dumping a bunch of chemicals or we're managing these plants. We have to look at what's happening in the system each year and adapt what we're doing each year to have the greatest outcome. The Lakes Management District steering community members are extremely active in choosing these work plans. There are many discussions back and forth. We go out on lake tours and look at what's happening in the lake. We look at depths. Long Lake is going to implement a water quality monitoring program that will be able to tell us what's happening with temperature in the lake, which is also really important when we're talking about managing plants. So the biggest thing here is we need to use what's available to us in order to improve water quality. And sometimes that means treating plants, and especially noxious weeds that are growing out of control and increasing water temperature.
So up in like the graph that I had, it was like 15 years worth of, using a different approach. And was it, I'm not sure when you started with Thurston County, Paula. Were you here in 2017?
I was working for public health in 2017.
Would you agree that that approach was failing and needed to be changed? The approach the county had for 15 years prior to 2017?
The herbicide usage?
Mm-hmm. The vegetation management?
I do think that because we need to adapt to what we're doing, because plants can develop resistancy. So if we're going in using sonar and we're not seeing any results with sonar, like what was seen in Lake Lawrence in 2017, it becomes really clear that a change in chemicals needs to be employed. So if we're treating plants that are no longer responding to a chemical, all we're doing is adding chemical to the water. without achieving the results that we're trying to achieve. I don't think it's a case of it was failing prior compared to being successful after 2017. I think it's something that really does happen in lakes. Plants become resistant to chemicals. Different years can be warmer and plants can take off. And our job as lake managers is to be able to look at what's happened over time and try to develop better plans each year for managing weeds and water quality.
And you're comfortable that the quantities of the chemicals being used now are appropriate and safe?
Yes, absolutely. And your biggest question about seeing herbicide usage increase, Tim addressed that in parts per million and parts per billion. So we use 150 parts per billion of sonar to treat plants in the lakes. 150 is the maximum that we use in each lake, and that's split into 3 different treatments. If you were to try to visualize that parts per billion versus parts per million, you have an increase that is quite significant when you're using parts per million. So aquathol is applied in parts per million. So yeah, there's more chemical that's put into the lake, but if it's applied at a lower dosage, we're not going to receive the results, and we're just applying chemical for no reason. It has to be at the exact parts per million, the exact formulation in order for it to work. And if it doesn't work, there's no point in doing the treatment.
So that kind of makes the graph that's on our website kind of irrelevant and misleading. It really should be charting out the more active component of it. I mean, just if it's charting out pounds, but that's not really the relevant measure of a change in approach, then that's not really good data to be putting forward for the public and commissioners that are uninformed like myself. Mm-hmm. So yes, I would make that point. And then the suggestion that every other county in Washington state uses these same chemicals, is that accurate?
I mean, as far as counties that I know that are doing herbicide treatments, I can't speak to every single county because I haven't personally discussed these issues. I've discussed these issues with many different counties that are close by to us. And yes, they use these chemicals, and they use chemicals that are not approved by us. Diquat is one that is commonly used. It's approved by the state. It's used in Lewis County, Mason County, Grace Harbor County, but we do not employ that because it did not pass our review. So environmental health, their part in this is they do a complete ecotoxicological review of these chemicals, and it's a restrictive use that we get to have. So we're only out there treating once a year. We'll treat with aquathol once a year, and that's it. We won't go back in twice or a third time. We'll repeat the treatment the following year. And I really feel like we are doing our part as environmental stewards to not only responsibly administer these chemicals in the appropriate amounts to get the achieved results that are desired, not only by the Lakes Management District, but to also preserve the health of the lake.
Okay, I know we are running out of time for this topic. What do we, any other follow-up from the board?
I guess I just have one quick thing for Paula.
Yep, go ahead.
Isn't timing pretty crucial on everything we're doing to limit the use so we can apply at a certain time and get the best punch, if you will? And that's why we're kind of up against a time frame on this whole thing right now, is my understanding.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, and I understand that, so that's why I'm going to take you up on your suggestion to have the board briefed on lake ecology and sort of a kind of an evaluation of this. It'd be interesting to me to find out that in 2017, Thurston County was the only county in Washington with a completely unique approach. Maybe that's true, but I kind of like to go deeper into alternatives and what choices do we have. Maybe this is the only choice, but I just don't. It's hard to say that. This is because, as you say, it's such a complex topic. Mm-hmm. So we have these topics. is there anything in terms of wrapping up what we've got on today's agenda, 7B, C, and D?
Yeah, additional question was related to the contract itself, and Mr. Halverson alluded to the fact the contract that is proposed for you to select through these contracts is the one who have been used in the past 5 years, and from his perspective, they have done a good job, and they're not necessarily disappointed on the selection. I think that was part of the second question that you had last week. So, and also what I received this morning, based on the conversation, you would like to have a briefing with the Department of Ecology to have a larger conversation in terms of an overall lake management systems related to water quality. Is that what I understand?
That isn't what I heard. I heard for our health department.
Yeah, I think
the
it could be
lakes
a
management people.
Board of Health agenda topic with environmental health.
Okay, Board of Health, okay.
And I can take that up with Shelley and our agenda setting meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And Paula, and, you know, we can have whoever's appropriate to be included. Okay.
Anything else on the 3 items? So I assume you would like to keep those items on the agenda for this afternoon?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, then we'll move along. Thank you, Tim and Paula. We've got 8 county manager standing items, and that's the commissioner's reports, county manager walking through our schedule, and adjournment. Okay, we got through one agenda.
The next one seems short. I think we can.
I'm going to propose we take a 7-minute break and reconvene at 12. It's 10:43. We will pick up at 10:50 with the April 27th agenda. 10:52 a.m. back in session, Thurston County Board of County Commissioners, agenda setting work session for April 20th. We're picking up, I said we completed this afternoon's agenda, but I was wrong. We never resolved item 3A. So we're going to double back to that. We've got Auditor Mary Hall here, Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. The issue is regarding a senior management analyst resolution position, and we've had several discussions about this, and we wanted to have the auditor here directly to kind of go hash this through. So I guess I'll let Ramiro set it up, and then my proposal was maybe to let Robin give a minute or two, a couple minutes explanation of her position, and let the auditor kind of respond to that, and then the board can ask questions, and then the two can kind of follow up at the end after the board asks questions. And that's my suggestion. If you have a different one, I'm open to hear it from there.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. That sounds good. Let me just frame a little bit of history in this. And it was more of a conversation with the board coming up with all the additional funding that we're going to get from the federal government, and perhaps in the next 2 years it will be nearing $100 million. It raised at least from my point of view, the question whether we have enough capacity on a temporary basis to manage that. There is a need for additional financial capacity on the Office of County Commissioners. And this is the reason as to why this particular position request came to you for you to consider is a senior management analyst ending December 31st, 2024. As you stated, there was a couple conversations. I believe Auditor Mary Hall has reached out individually to each one of you, providing her perspective. I myself had conversations with Auditor Hall on a couple of occasions, which I also asked her to submit additional positions that she might need to deal with the overall funding that is coming our way. So last week, we delayed this item a couple of weeks, in fact, because of this particular conversation. Last week, you asked me to invite Auditor Mary Hall as part of this conversation. And you heard from Robin Campbell last week, and she can probably brief you again as to what her perspective is on this position. I myself, I concur with Robin Campbell's needs for this particular position, and then begin the conversation with Auditor Hall.
I know Mary's got staff members, and when it's your turn, Mary, you can sort of call on your folks as you see fit, but we'll start with Robin.
Thank you.
So give me a second. I just saw Robin going back to her office. I think she was, so give us just a second.
Okay, excuse me a second.
I don't think she was tracking that you moved this item earlier. Hey, Robin, are you back to your desk? There you go. So I think you missed the conversation that we brought the issue of the senior management analyst up at this time. As a matter of conversation, I provided a little bit of a background related to how the history as to how this position came to be. And you provided your perspective, which I stated to the board this morning that I concur with your perspective as to the need of this particular position. And the board will ask for you to restate what you stated last week in terms of the need of this position. At that point, then the board would like to hear from Mary Hall.
I am quite frankly uncomfortable in this situation and decline to comment.
Okay, let's go to Mary then. Mary, I know you watched the meeting last week and you heard Robin kind of laid out her argument regarding this position. So rather than having the board members try to characterize your position, if you or your staff members could explain your position, that would be useful.
Yeah, and my apologies, I'm not on screen. I'm actually in the office and I don't have a camera on my PC. So, you know, the auditor's office is the financial office for the county, and we have a grants manager. You know, on March 8th, to be exact, Robin sent me an email saying that you'd like to talk about putting another full-time person in financial services to address the additional grant money that we were going to receive. And you know, the workload would be processing payments, reviewing claims, monitoring multiple funding sources, in addition to everything else we do. And then a couple weeks later, I get another email. We're going to hire a person on the budget team to do the oversight of all the funding stream in response to the pandemic. And you know, my concern is, you know, I worked hard to bring grants in a more centralized type of environment, because from 2012 to 2014, Thurston County received 5 grant audit findings from multiple departments, and it was simply just too scattered. So in 2016, I requested a grants manager, received it, and we've been clean for 5 years. We have not had an audit finding. Audit findings affect our credit rating, which affects interest rates for issuing bonds. It also makes state audits more expensive because they have to audit more things. And if we have 2 compliance officers in this county, I'm afraid that things are going to get splintered and we're going to have things fall through the cracks. And I think it could be set up just like Olivia, how Olivia works in tandem with Robin and her team on budget. And I would see a position that would reside in financial services, but would be the commissioner's front end, and then also work with our grants manager to ensure that everything is going through those same compliance channels, which is a grants manager, internal auditor. So I have concerns decentralizing this huge amount of money that's going to come in. I think we have a good system. It served us well last year. We reported timely and we're well ahead of the state. And I just have concerns that if we decentralize this, we're going to have some issues. I mean, this is what we do in financial services, and we do it well.
Questions from the board from Mary?
I don't have questions specifically. I mean, I see what Mary's saying, and I heard what Robin said last week. I wish she would have stayed and given us more insight on the decision on, you know, on her viewpoint on this, but I don't think I have further questions at this time.
I do.
Yep, go ahead.
I guess I have a couple of concerns. I said earlier, all things being equal, I would stick with the elected position. I think Mary Hall is answerable to the public. She is an elected official, and so in my estimation, she gets the priority. I am concerned about this position being called a senior management analyst position. It bothers me that Mary Hall does not have, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think has a senior management analyst position.
I do not.
Oh, okay. And others throughout the appointed process of the county, which stems from the county commission on down and all their staff, I guess they do have senior management analyst positions. And I think Mary Hall ought to have the, she ought to be right there on the top and have that type of ability. I'm not going to pretend to know all the ins and outs of everybody's job that might hold that title. But if she's got a hard time retaining people, and retention is a big piece of keeping good help on hand, I think that she should get this senior management analyst position. And if the county manager and Robin want a position to help oversee something that they can justify, I'm not against that, because I think by the time we get all this federal money coming through, even though to me, it's a lot more lax, this money, than past money. But I think it's going to behoove us to get it right and make sure we don't make any mistakes. So I would entertain, at least from my position as one county commissioner, I would entertain something that might be proposed to help solve that problem. But for now, I am inclined to vote with Mary Hall and make sure she's got the best folks she can possibly have to do her job. She is the elected official and accountable to the public. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Well, I don't know where that leaves us. I mean, unless somebody, I guess I basically agree with Commissioner Edwards. If somebody wants to take me deeper in the weeds and describe how Mary's proposed approach isn't going to work or is going to create additional risk or not be as efficient, I'm all ears. But her position seems logical on the surface, and I don't have a reason to not think that the county auditor can handle this function based on the breakdown of functions related to grants and compliance. So I guess that's where I'm at. I kind of wanted to hear, I wanted Mary to be able to articulate in her own words and then hear what the response back is from either Robin, Ramiro, or elsewhere. But if that response isn't coming forward, then I guess I'm inclined to side with the auditor as well.
I see Mary Hall's hand up on her screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't been monitoring that. Okay, go ahead, Mary.
So to address Commissioner Edwards' comments, last year I did intend to complete a reorganization in financial services to raise the position levels. But we put that on hold during budget development because we didn't know what our financial picture looked like. And, we were being asked for budget cut exercises at that time. So I do agree that it's important that we raise these positions, because I have lost a couple positions to other departments because their finance positions pay more. And financial services is a very important department in this county. And I've got a lot of retirements coming up, and we need to provide opportunity to ensure that the people in the department stay and have promotional opportunities. So thank you, Commissioner Edwards. I agree with you.
I'm not weighing in on that whatsoever. I don't have an opinion about it, and it's off topic from my perspective, but we do need to address the needs of this proposed position and where it needs to be. It seems, I don't know where Commissioner Mejia is. Sounds like there's at least 2 votes at this point to have this placed on the, in a different structure, which probably means it needs to be pulled and retooled for board approval at a different meeting. I see Diana's hand as well. I'll get to that. Ramiro, is that the procedure that would have to take place?
Well, based on the conversation, the thing is that the difficulty is staff having counter argument with an elected official, and staff always have the losing end of that conversation. It is just a comment. As stated by the board, it seems to be that there's always the elected officials take priority, and I respect that. So it becomes a little bit difficult to have this conversation with elected officials where staff always going to have the losing end. So really is what the board would like to do with this position. If if the auditor's office needs a position to help them go through this, what will that position be? Is this position or another position? And that is, again, the offer that I asked Mary Hall previously. And so is the conversation related to this senior management analyst, where it's located? Or the conversation is if the auditor's office need additional resources to deal with the additional money? I think it's two different pieces of conversation on this. So I would like to hear from the auditor's office if this position is what they need, then the board will take an action on that. Or is any other position the board may consider adding to the auditor's office?
Diana, do you have input on that or whatever? You had your hand up, go for it.
Sure.
I just wanted to dovetail what Mary said about this is what the Auditor's Financial Services Division does, and we do it well. But another thing that we do well is work collaboratively together with the Commissioner's Office. And last year when we had federal funds come in, we had a fiscal response team, and I feel like the Commissioner's staff and the Auditor's staff worked well under the circumstances in a rapid fashion during the pandemic to make sure that we are maximizing our funding sources, being timely and accurate with our reporting, and have adequate supporting documentation. I think that there were several staff in the Commissioner's Office that worked with the Auditor's Office, which we do on a regular basis on a variety of things. What the board needs and what my elected official needs, we balance those all the time for best results for our community. I would say, in my humble opinion, this is an exercise on communications, and we just were not aware of the strategic change. And what I think we need is a clarification of roles and responsibilities. If in our position, Romero, your question is what do we need? We know we need more resources. We had staff that was stretched in our office and yours last year, and they went above and beyond, and we appreciate that. But now that we have these funds coming in and we can plan for those appropriately, who's doing what? That's what we need to clarify. And I just want to make sure we don't have a duplication of efforts or something doesn't get dropped. And I'm also very mindful with these federal funds that whoever has their time charged there is dedicated to this funding source. Mary, is that?
No, I think you covered it well. And I think we do grants very well, and having another person, working on the compliance side, I think would be very helpful. But we don't make the decisions regarding how the money is spent. That's not our thing. We need to make sure that it's spent properly, that adequate documentation is maintained, and try to, secure as many of those federal grant dollars as possible. And I think we do that we do that very well too. Which is exactly what the AIS says. So I guess I'm a little confused with the item description.
I would also add, I really appreciated Romero's comment at the end of the last meeting where he said, let's have a holistic conversation about this. We have a problem or a challenge that we want to work together. We're here to serve. We would know what level of position we need based on who's doing what. What is our office doing? If we're doing what the expectations of what we would cover, we know what that is, but we want to make sure that that's not being duplicated by a position in the Commissioner's Office on the budget team.
So, Commissioner.
One position too.
Yeah, Romero.
Proposal to move forward, perhaps?
Sure.
Maybe taking this item out of your agenda today and give us time to come back in a joint effort assessing the needed resources as we move forward.
I think that's a great idea. Is that okay with the rest of the board?
Yes, that's okay with me.
I would like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
As we move forward in whatever fashion or whatever time frame you folks work out, I think the bottom line is we need balance in our financial oversight. I think by giving Mary this position, we get some of that balance. And what Mary does as far as how she wants to assign this detail, that's her prerogative. But it bothers the dickens out of me that we have other senior analyst positions around the county and Mary handles everything and does not have one. So I don't know if this position would go straight to that or not, but I don't like the idea that she's not up to snuff and faces a possibility of losing personnel sometime in the future that we don't even know about yet, because somebody could move into another position or go elsewhere. And I think that recognition is needed. And I don't know how we design that with that FTE or how we move that forward. I'd leave that up to Mary and her staff to figure that out, because she's in the driver's seat as far as I'm concerned when it comes to keeping track of things. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I would opt to move forward with this sooner rather than later. Just if we could change where the position goes, it'd be okay with me, but I'm always impatient, and I guess I'll learn to be not so impatient if we're gonna wait.
I just also want to say I apologize about any, in terms of pitting an elected official and a staff member. I'm probably not very sensitive to that because I don't really see them differently in a sense. The commissioners need the information to make decisions, and I'm going to ask for information from the most knowledgeable people. I don't care if they're an elected official or an appointed director. I understand that. I know county government is structured in a bizarre way in a sense. Public health is just as difficult to run as auditor or assessor somewhere else. In other counties, public health, I'm just using that as an example, is an elected position. If I need information, I'm going to ask for it from whatever quarter, and I'm going to treat the information on equal footing. So I feel like I have no choice but to ask for information from folks, and in some cases it might be elected officials, some cases it might not be, and I expect to receive that information. So the commissioners are not financial experts in this particular instance. We're experts in a lot of things and a variety of things, but not that thing. So we need information, and I apologize if that put anybody in an uncomfortable position or would in the future. I don't think it's wrong for the commissioners to ask for information from the staff. So I guess you have concurrence, Ramiro, on your proposal.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Let's go to next week's agenda, Tuesday, April 27th. Meeting called to order at 2 p.m. There are no presentations, or there are presentations. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia, reviewing agenda and board meeting minutes. And then we have 2 proposed proclamations: Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and Bicycle Commuter Month. And these are for the months of May.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And for your consideration, we're still working on the draft for those 2 proclamations. We'll be circulating those this coming week. We'd just like to give you a heads up for your consideration. Those proclamations may be on your agenda for next week.
Okay. Any questions from the board on these?
No, sir.
Opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update. Anything there, Ramiro, to discuss?
Nothing that I'm tracking at this point, sir.
We have the consent item will be the auditor's voucher list, and board will have time to inquire any items there before next week.
Yes.
Item 4 is to set a public hearing, renewal of the interim emergency housing ordinance.
Yeah, this conversation the board had related to the emergency housing ordinance. And we currently have a one ordinance, 15948, which allows interim regulations that expires June 9, 2021. This item is not related to the docket item that you added to make this a permanent. This conversation is related to, and you had to give direction for staff to bring this item for you to consider extending the interim regulations. And this proposal, if you do so, will take it for another 6 months, which is December 9th, 2021. So prior to you considering extending the interim regulations, you need to hold a public hearing. So this proposal is for you to consider setting the public hearing for May 25th, 2021 at 3 in the afternoon. And Leah Davis is here to answer any additional questions related to this proposal.
I'm going to ask if there are board questions for Leah. I know Commissioner Edwards and I have seen this numerous times. Any questions, Commissioner Mejia?
No, I appreciated the presentation that was given in regards to this. So I know there was a work session, right?
Yes, sir.
Did I miss it? Okay. Okay. But other than that, I just appreciated that. It gave me a good overview. So I have no questions at this time.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Leah. Item 4B, reappointment to Agricultural Advisory Committee.
Not much to elaborate on this topic. You had a conversation last week related to this particular appointment. And usually those appointments are in the consent agenda. And I believe Commissioner Messer requested to move this item to the next week and have as a department item, meaning that will be an individual vote related to this particular reappointment of Mr. Richard Mankemeyer to the Agricultural Advisory Committee.
Right. If there's 2 votes for the reappointment, then it should be on the on this department item. If there are not, then it should be removed from the agenda. I guess we can take that up next week.
Yeah. So I'm not asking you to vote on this. Please don't do it today. So, and again,
right,
just
there can be a motion to remove something. From
no, absolutely. If the board doesn't feel comfortable to consider this item next week, let me know and we'll take it out or delay it. No, yeah, thank you for clarifying that, sir.
Okay. Anything to say at this point from the board on this item?
I do have one thing. I do have one thing I'd comment on, sir.
Yep.
Having reviewed all the facts here, so far, not all the facts, but the facts that I have available, I think what Commissioner Mejia brought up on Friday is very appropriate here, and in reviewing our boards and commissions and what we expect them and how we expect them to do business will be very applicable as we move forward here in developing some policies and procedures for that process to take place. Because I guess there is some confusion about somebody was advised they don't need to do this or they do need to do that, and that's in question. So I look forward to kind of getting that solidified as we move forward.
And that's a good, that triggers something I should probably say is I got some communications from folks who kind of there was a confluence of 2 issues and I probably wasn't clear. My position on this reappointment has nothing to do with the procedural issues that I raised. They just happen to come up at the same time. I'm still looking into those procedural issues. I don't know who's at fault or what needs to happen. I do have concerns. I watched a few clips from meetings, but I'm still working on that. My position on this reappointment has nothing to do with that. It's the same position I had in 2019, and we were written up in the newspaper about it, and it relates to the findings of the State Conservation Commission. So took us a couple years to unravel all of that, and I got a ton of input back in 2019 about the board's decision back then. So I just want to make folks clear, those are two separate issues from my perspective, and I'm still working through the procedural issues.
I do have one other comment. I guess I've not had time to review material that's come in apparently since close of quitting time yesterday, I think. So it looks to me like everybody on the Ag Committee, I mean, this kind of caused quite a buzz. And I don't know if I got to use the term everybody, because I really don't know how many are on the Ag Committee and who all is listed on the Ag Committee, but it sure looks like those individuals that are coming forward are very supportive of Mr. McNamara as he moves forward on this. So it seems like a lot of input, which is unusual. So something's going on. And that's kind of where I'm at on that issue right now. I appreciate all he's done. Thank you.
Anything else on this item?
It is not everybody. I've gotten emails and I've gotten responses from both sides of the matter. So I don't want to ostracize everyone. Those, for or against, we're still hearing from both sides on this matter. Thank you.
So we'll keep this item for next week for you to exercise your vote.
Sounds good. Thank you. That's the end of the issue for, okay, we have a Board of Health.
No, that's a typo. We'll remove that.
I was going to say, I don't see.
Yeah, no, that's a typo. Thank you.
All right. So, looking for my agenda, which somehow
Proclamations and awards.
yeah, somehow I've misplaced my agenda for this meeting. Okay, here I got it.
Okay.
All right. Item 5 is proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. The proclamations for this afternoon, Billy Frank Jr. Remembrance Month and Earth Day are included. We will have members from the Nisqually Tribal Council joining us over Zoom, and I believe Bob Barnes in attendance for acceptance of the Earth Day proclamation. There's also a draft proclamation for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month for your review, and we'll route the draft Bicycle Commuter Month proclamation prior to next Tuesday. And that was at the request of Duncan Green from Inner City Transit.
Questions for Amy on proclamations and awards?
No, sir.
I guess I just, on the Earth Day, on the 4th, whereas, was the safety concern on trains, was that about oil rather than coal? I just bring that up.
On the 4 whereas, is climate change is already affecting our communities. Impacts like other summers, wildlife, smoke, flooding endanger our homes and affect public health and local businesses. Is that what you're talking about, sir?
On the Earth Day?
Yeah, on the 4th whereas. That's the one that I just read.
4th whereas says Thurston County has supported improving safety of coal trains. I didn't know we were concerned about coal trains. I thought we were concerned about oil trains.
Are you looking at today's version?
Oh, well, we've had a change, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it was
I guess I was looking at
last week's.
Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Disregard. I'll
So it's today's on
see what I come up with.
On today's packet is is the new version where we received the comments from commissioners.
Oh,
it's the new version.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
Did you find it? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, let's not waste any time on it.
Okay,
right
thank
now.
you, sir.
Let's keep going. I haven't read the revised version.
Let's go to item 6, advisory boards and commissions.
There are 6 applications in your packet. I'll just quickly run through them. The first 2 are from the Ag Advisory Committee, one from Juanita McClure for reappointment, and the other from Richard McNamara, current chair, for reappointment. I've also received an application for reappointment from Diane Puss for the Board of Equalization. Again, like a couple weeks ago with the reappointment of John Graver, Diane does continue to serve until reappointed or until a successor is appointed. So we do wish to receive direction on her application next Tuesday morning. There's also an application for a vacant Historic Commission seat from Tamara Hayes for your review. And lastly, for the Planning Commission, there's one application for the vacant District 1 seat from Kevin Festinger and one from Jim Simmons for reappointment. So these are included for your review, and I'm happy to take any questions or circle back next Tuesday morning.
I do have a question.
Yes.
For the Planning Commission, shouldn't that just go directly to the commissioner for each district? And then that commissioner brings forward the application?
Based on the conversation.
Based on the conversation we had Friday, yeah.
Yes, what I believe the board agree is if it's a commissioner district appointment, the commissioner within that district will bring the nomination.
Okay.
And for broader conversation for the board, yes.
And I think the complication here is that each of us have an at-large position. So
right.
You see, for example, you, Commissioner Mejia, you've got an open seat in your, and you've got an open at-large seat, I believe.
Correct.
Which means you need to see applicants from the whole county because you'd have anyone from the county available to bring forward as a nomination for that particular seat because it's the at-large. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do I have that right, Ramiro?
Yes, sir.
Correct,
Okay.
but shouldn't those applications come to the commissioner directly, and then after that, the commissioner will bring forward the nomination from just the applicants that they chose with the,
Yeah, that's what I believe the conversation the board had on Friday.
Okay.
So this outside of that a little bit because it was submitted prior
Okay.
to that.
Yeah, I was just wondering on the process.
Yeah.
And one more question, Jim Simmons, for what district is that reappointment?
He's in my
Simmons is
district.
District 3, yes.
Okay.
He's not at large. He's a District 3 appointment.
Correct.
Okay, so that's basically I guess I would bring Mr. Simmons back for reappointment.
Yeah, that would be a great time to exercise that if you like to bring that's a nomination for reappointment.
Okay, it's really pretty important that we know what district these applicants are in for Planning Commission, even though there is the at-large possibility. It's like there's the two, we both have to know which slot we have at our, in front of us, and then the applicants, that way we would know they'd have to slot into a district spot versus an at-large spot.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, like on this application, usually previous applications I've seen, it says it's in a different format and it says district, commissioner district. These don't.
Okay, we'll go back to the application to see if she's specifically on that, what district. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get this worked out. It's been kind of new. CIO check-in next.
Good morning, Commissioners and County Manager. Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for the board. Yesterday, we produced our second episode of Coffee with the Commissioner. Commissioner Menzer spoke with Bob Barnes, a retired landscape architect and tree planting advocate here in Thurston County. Conversations centered around Earth Day, climate change, teaching the next generation, and ways that we can help protect our planet. For context, the Coffee with the Commissioner is our new web series we launched this year. These episodes are live streamed on our YouTube channel, and they can be watched there anytime after the episode airs. So far, that episode has been viewed 55 times, but I do expect the video to be viewed more over the next couple weeks. And I think these episodes will just continue to grow in popularity as we continue to move forward. Also, we are at the 1-year anniversary of the launch of our weekly Friday 5 newsletter. Our first issue was published on April 17th, 2020, and since then, Thurston County has had 267 new subscribers. By the numbers, the Friday 5 newsletter has an average readership of 42%. This is 14% higher than the industry average, and then the newsletter also has a 15% click-through rate This essentially means the amount of times links are selected within the newsletter, and this is 12% higher than the industry average. So we're doing well in those two metrics. And then to date, we have released 49 Friday 5 newsletters. Number 50 will go out this Friday. And our goal this year is to reach 1,000 subscribers. So we've seen a lot of success with Friday 5, and we're pretty excited about it. And then I've been working with Commissioner Mejia's office on the rollout of a new newsletter from her. This will be a monthly newsletter, and we'll be releasing information on that and how people can subscribe via email in the next few days. And finally, County Manager Chavez and Commissioner Mejia recorded public service announcements and answered frequently asked questions about COVID-19 vaccinations. These products were produced in Spanish. Both PSAs have been released, and I'm exploring ways to enhance distribution through radio and streaming services like Pandora. And the frequently asked questions video hasn't been released yet, but that will be coming out soon, probably in the next day or so. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Questions for Brian?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Thank you, Brian. Legislative update, county manager report.
So hopefully I can go through, I am not going to highlight all of them, but just a few. There was an interest, I believe, of the board and the county. The first one is House Bill 1016, the making a Juneteenth a legal holiday. You heard that from Maria Ponte, our HR director. That's becoming a law, so we need to do something moving on next year. Also, an item that was tracking, the House Bill 1056 has died, and that was concerning the open public meeting notices requirements. On page 1, the House Bill 1068, accepting election security information from public records, that's moving forward, and I believe the governor will be signing that. The House Bill 1070, which modified allowable taxes for local tax revenues for affordable housing, is going to be moving forward to the governor's desk. Moving to page 2. Please stop me if you have any questions. 1073, expanded the coverage of the paid family medical leave. That's moving forward. That also will have a little bit of an effect on our HR policies. 1076, allows in whistleblower actions on behalf of the state violations, that has died. 1083, concerning relocation assistance for tenants or closed or for converted manufactured mobile home parks, that is moving forward for the governor's signature. 1099, improving the state's climate response through updates to the state comprehensive planning framework. That bill has died, as well as the next one, the 1117, promoting salmon recovery through revisions of the state comprehensive planning framework. Moving on to page 3, 1152, supporting the measures to create comprehensive public health district, that's moving forward. 1167, that concerning the Thurston County additional Superior Court judge, that has been signed by the governor, as you heard. And 1232, planning for affordable housing under the Growth Management Act, that has died so far this legislative session. 1258, also that which is concerning to operations authorizations and permitting of micro enterprise home kitchens. That is an item that we were tracking. Moving on to the next page. At the bottom of the page is 1335, concerning the review and property owner notification of recorded documents with unlawful racial restrictions, that moving forward to the governor's signature. Next page, page 5. 1348, providing medical assistance to incarcerated persons, that's moving forward. And that is really allows to have a request for Medicare to have a waiver for us to provide medical assistance to incarcerated persons for the next first 6 months of their term. Next is on page 6. 5045, establishing meat and poultry inspection programs. That has died, and as you may recall, there was this bill that was interested to the Agriculture Advisory Committee, in which you submitted a letter in support of this particular piece of legislation. And that's all I have related to a very high-level update on this report. As you know, the legislature right now is in the process of reconciling the different budgets, both the operational and capital, and the legislative session ends, I believe, on the 25th, which is Saturday, so time is ticking. And I don't believe they're planning to have a special session beyond that.
Questions for Ramiro before we move on?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. Item 9 is briefing/public hearing decisions pending.
Nothing is pending, Commissioners. Just a follow-up, for next week, I will be bringing the C-PACER item for your consideration to provide direction as to how you'd like to move forward. I'd reach out to the individual aides to make sure you have additional questions. I did not receive an additional question, so there is not a need for a follow-up briefing. So I will bring this item for your consideration next week. So just to give a heads up.
Yep. Commissioner items 10, sub-item 1, federal funds.
Yeah, you already discussed that with Auditor Hall, so I think that has been already provided direction.
Item 2, Veterans Fund Internal Audit Report.
Yes, and this is a follow-up. This is a formal introduction. I just got an email from Brandon. Perhaps the letter that I included in your packet needs to be updated, but the gist of the results still the same. I will give Brandon the floor here in a minute to explore. So it goes back to late last year when we received public testimony related to the Veterans Fund, in particular related to how we are funding, we are managing this fund, and whether we are meeting the required state law as to how we spend the dollars to provide benefits to our veterans here in the county. We have an internal practice that the best way to address some of those questions will be to ask our internal auditor, Brandon, and before we asked, I personally asked the internal auditor, we had a conversation with the internal audit committee, which is formed by Mary Hall, the county auditor, Jeff Cadman, the treasurer, and myself, as the county manager. And we've had all the different requests that Brandon is going to do, and that's his work plan. So that was added last year, part of his work plan. And in this particular letter, is 2 elements. This letter addressed to me, and the back end is a little more detail of his report related to the audit that he conducted in fund and the Veterans Assistance Fund. I'm going to briefly walk you through this, key in some highlights of the report, and then I will give the floor to Brandon to add anything that perhaps that I missed, and open up for questions from the board at this point. No decisions are required for you today. This is just for you to present this report. There is not a need for you to approve this report, and there is not a need for you to take a formal action on this report. What I do is I introduce this particular report. This has been an interest and related to public comments, and I will highlight this afternoon as part of my managed report, as I stated earlier this morning. So on the first page, it goes through a little bit of background of all the applicable laws related to the Revised Code of Washington. Then Brandon gets into a little more in detail as to what the scope and methodology that he used in approaching this particular audit, internal audit. And he also highlighted the individuals he has contacted just to make sure that he has a holistic approach to that. There are 2 elements related to the he keyed, I believe, and that is the MOU that we have with the City of Lacey, where we pay $30,000 to support the veterans facility cost, and also the agreement that we'll have with Catholic Community Services for emergency shelter that we provide to our veterans. Without getting too much into the details of this, the conclusion is, and I'm going to jump into the conclusion, and this afternoon I will walk through a little more in detail, just for the public's benefit. The conclusion on number 5, and that will be page number 5. And I'm going to read this just for the general public. So based on review of the qualifying criteria for individual assistance, emergency shelter services, and the populations at the Veteran Hub, county expenditures of the Veterans Assistance Fund are in compliance with applicable RCWs and the fund policy. Additionally, the county has established reasonable controls to ensure that expenditures for assistance payments and shelter services are only paid out on behalf of eligible individuals. What is not practical to perform eligibility review for individuals accessing the Veterans Hub, fund payments are at a level where the county can confidently be in compliance with the eligibility requirements established in RCW and the fund policy. While no significant control deficiencies were identified during the course of this review, opportunities exist to improve program operations. These observations and recommendations are addressed directly to the Public Health and Social Services Director in a separate report entitled Veterans Assistance Fund 2021-21, which is, I have included that in your packet. Brandon, you'd like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Thanks, County Manager Chavez. I think you really did a good job capturing the high level overall conclusions. Again, the focus and scope of this really was on the compliance question around whether the county can be confident that the funds being used towards this program are in compliance with the RCW and fund policy, and that's the ultimate conclusion of the review. The sort of the comments that I also want to add to this is that this program really is a great collaboration with City of Lacey as well towards efforts with the Veterans Hub. I think that was the one area that maybe there was some questions, but after review, very, very confident that the county's investment towards that hub is compliance with RCW, and the return on investment and improving the lives of veterans and is really a great accomplishment of the county. And so it really wasn't the scope of review, but something definitely that I wanted to note. And the other comment is whenever you get an auditor involved at looking at a program, there's typically going to be some recommendations there to consider for opportunities for improvement. But these are all, I want to say, sort of administrative process. Just some areas that the program can be tightened up, as well as gathering a little bit more information from the county's perspective on the individuals that are accessing the Veterans Hub. City of Lacey and the Hub were involved in meetings related to just gathering information as part of this review, and they're both great partners to the county and eager to support our efforts to ensure that these funds are used appropriately in the way that really serves the intended purpose. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Mejia, question?
No questions, just thank you for this. It definitely gives me a different perspective on what's going on with these funds. So thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
Brandon, you've really dug into this, and I appreciate that very much. I don't really have, I kind of speed read this in the last 5 minutes, so I don't have a good question other than I am wondering about your recommendation number 8, in which you reduce or stabilize the growth of the Veterans Fund. I'm hoping that has to do with making it all match, and I like to think we can always do better for our veterans. So I look forward to more review on that, but thank you very much for this report. It looks like you really dug into it.
We've had complaints from one of our residents, veteran residents, over the last couple of years, and both from my recollection and maybe Commissioner Mejia's benefit, who might not have heard all of them. Can Brandon or Ramiro, can you guys remind me the specific allegation that was being made? Was the allegation that we were not providing, that we were paying for things we shouldn't have been paying for, or paying money to people that shouldn't have been receiving the money, or what exactly was the concern of the complainant?
Yeah, there was, I believe, 2 elements, main elements. What I gather based on the many different testimonies. One was the eligibility of using the Veterans Fund to fund, to coordinate with the City of Lacey, helping the operations of the Veterans Hub. That was a main concern, I believe. And the second concern has been that, that perhaps we're mismanaging these funds by utilizing the Veterans Funds to fund general government, which that's not the case. So those are the over time, the 2 big elements that at least I remember receiving from the citizen. And I believe those 2 main elements have been addressed in this report.
I'm just writing that down. Hang on. Okay, thank you, Brandon. We've got the report and we'll look at it more closely.
And Mark Moffett, who is the manager of the Veterans Fund, is also here and available to answer any questions.
Anything you want to add, Mark?
Good morning, Commissioners. No, I went over this report with Brandon once he completed it, and I think he did a great job on it. And there are a couple things that we can do to improve our program, but and I think that we're getting to the veteran population that we need to be.
Good. Okay. You know, the last thing that Commissioner Edwards pointed out there about the explore opportunities to reduce or stabilize growth in the account balance. And I know that, I want to say 1.5 years ago or so, we expanded the dollar amounts and limits for the services in order to try to manage that and get more resources out to the veterans that were in need. And has that been successful, Mark, that that expansion? Has it worked well, and does it need to be reevaluated, or?
It did. I don't have the numbers for you today, Commissioner. We did have our quarterly meeting yesterday for the Veterans Advisory Board, and I brought our fund balance up to the board and asked them to develop a work group on ways that we can spend it down to get the money to the veterans, because where we're at now, I think that we need to do more than just look at the bills on an individual basis. And so that's what the work group's going to start to develop, and they're going to report back in July. But yes, and then we also expanded it during this pandemic as well, as on an emergency basis. So we did expand it to who we can give it to and the amounts.
But also, if I may, Mark, I think it was before you joined the county, in the last few years, it was a concern at one point, the ending fund balance was going into the red a few years ago, and we took actions to start reducing that a little bit. So here we are. I think we have done a nice job. Now we have a healthy fund balance, And I appreciate you engaging the advisory board to start looking as to ways as to how we can enhance the programs that we provide to our veterans. So, it's just that the balance that we'll go through over time related to this. But I'd like to emphasize the point that the ending fund balance that we have on the Veterans Fund remains there for the advisory committee to exercise their thought process and provide recommendations to the board to enhance the programs. The ending fund balance does not fund any other government functions in the county.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Brandon. That'll bring us to item 10, sub 3, public testimony.
I just touched base on that I will highlight this. And at that point, after I walk through, then I will make it available to the public upon request, this particular report.
Okay, and we have 7 minutes remaining if there's a commissioner item that needs to be addressed. I'm looking to my seatmates. I do not have one.
I have just one quick one.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
This kind of goes back onto old business, and I might ask the county manager about this, but on the proclamation for Billy Frank Jr., are there going to be members from the tribe here today, or?
Yeah, Amy reported this morning the members of the Nisqually tribe will be present this afternoon.
Are they going to be present or join us Zoom or?
I believe Zoom.
Zoom. I see there's a typo in there.
Yeah, if you have any, we can certainly change that as soon as possible. Yes, please.
And I just have a quick question. Did we review this with our tribal partners out there?
So as you may recall, on the joint meeting with the tribal leadership, they suggested to the board for you to consider this proclamation. They give us a template that we utilize to build this proclamation.
Okay. Looks good. No, but I just...
What is the typo that you had?
Okay.
You can probably give me that after the meeting.
Yeah, it's just minor. I'm just trying to make it read right for everybody. It's the word "of" was left out, so.
Where?
If you went to the, from the bottom, so the second whereas up from the bottom.
Yeah.
Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission, where he served as chair for most of its first 30 years.
Okay.
Very minor, but
no, perfect.
I kind of want to get it right for him.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
On my desk this morning was a letter from the Historic Commission. Is that something we're addressing this morning, or is that going to be addressed at a later time?
I have to read that letter.
Okay.
It was just distributed, so give me some time to read it, and I will bring that if it need be a later conversation.
Very good. Just checking. Okay. 11:55. We're back at 2 p.m. If there's nothing further, we're adjourned.